Alright, welcome to a video for Math 2, Section 12.4, Part 2. We're looking at solving quadratic equations by taking square roots. So we already talked about solving a quadratic equation by graphing, so this is Part 2. A document similar to this will be available on Canvas for you to print out if you would like to, and also the practice problems as well. But if you don't have a working printer, you're welcome to just write this down on in your notebook. The page numbers will be provided in Canvas so that you know where to put it. Okay? Alright, so let's get started. Alright, first of all, this method that we're about to use is only going to work if there is no bx term. Okay? Which is the term that's in the middle. Right? We've been talking a lot about standard form. ax squared plus bx plus c is the sort of standard representation of a quadratic. For a quadratic equation, we make that equal to 0. So we cannot have this term to use this method that we're going to go over today. We will learn other methods that will work for the case where there is a bx. So if there is one, just know you cannot use it. So we're basically just going to have ax squared and plus c equals 0, or a and c are going to be filled with numbers. Okay? Alright, so on the left here we have steps, and on the right we're going to do an example, and then there's about 10 more practice problems that we're going to do. Okay, so to begin with, the first thing you want to do is put it in the correct form. And the form you want to get it into is ax squared equals a number. In other words, I'm going to take the c and I'm going to move it to the other side. So you have your squared term on one side and a number on the other. Then the second thing you're going to do is, remember, solving an equation is to get the variable alone. And so we need to undo what's happening to this x. So this x is here. We have two things happening. We have multiplying by a and squaring. And what we need to get rid of first is the a. So let's just divide both sides by a. Okay? Alright, and then the third step is going to get rid of the squared. But before we get into the third step, let's actually look at this example and do the first two steps. Okay, so this is not in the correct form, and the thing that makes it not in the correct form is this 8. Let me actually zoom in so that we can look at this problem a little bit closer. Okay, so we need to get rid of the 8 to get it into the form ax squared equals a number. That was the first step. So I'm going to subtract it from both sides. Now this is gone. We're left with 3x squared is equal to 60. Okay, so now this is the form that I have. And so the second step was to divide both sides by a. So my a is just whatever number is in front of this squared. If there is no number in front of the squared, in other words it's a 1, you don't have to do this step. But I do have a number, it's a 3, and I'm going to divide both sides by that 3. It's really important that you divide first before you do the step we're going to do next. Okay, so what are we left with after we divide? We have x squared is equal to 20. So we're not done because it's not x equals, it's x squared equals. So that's where we get into our last step. So our third step here is we are going to take the plus or minus square root of both sides. Okay, so that stands for plus or minus. It means we're going to take a positive square root and we're going to take a negative square root at the same time. So we write it like this, plus or minus the square root. It represents doing two things, or two numbers. Okay, as we'll see. So let's do that for our case here. We have x squared is equal to 20. So I'm going to take the plus or minus square root of both sides. Now here, when I take the square root of x squared, I'm left with just x. Okay, now it's like they cancel. Now the plus or minus here we don't have to worry about. It's more on the other side. Okay, so here we're left with plus or minus the square root of 20, which really means two things. It means a positive square root of 20 and a negative square root of 20. Okay, but we should keep in mind that with radicals we need to simplify them. All right, so let's review how to simplify a square root. So let's go up here. The square root of 20, we're just going to do one of them for right now. 20 is 4 times 5. So we can break that up as the square root of 4 times the square root of 5. Now 20 is other things like 2 times 10, but I'm specifically picking 4 and 5 because 4 is a perfect square. So when I take the square root of 4, it comes out as a regular number, which is 2. 5 is not a perfect square, so we leave it inside. All right, now remember that there's a plus or minus in front of it, and the plus or minus goes in front of the 2. All right, if you put the plus or minus after the 2, that means something completely different. Okay, so that's pretty much the procedure. That's pretty much it. Okay, I'm going to do a separate video that you can watch with these problems, but I want you to try these 10 problems first. Okay, so follow the directions on Canvas for where to put this into your notes, and then watch the second video for me going over these answers when you're done. Okay, so give some more a try.